Sir, are you okay? You're shaking really bad.
A small voice called through the howling wind and snow. James Harrison looked up from the park bench where he had been sitting for hours, completely soaked and numb from the cold. Through the blizzard, he saw a 12-year-old black girl with torn clothes and no coat, carrying a plastic bag and a dirty blanket. "I'm fine," he said quietly, his voice barely audible over the storm. "Just leave me alone." But Luna Brown didn't leave. Instead, she looked at this stranger with genuine concern. She had been living on the streets for 3 years, and she knew what it looked like when someone had given up on life. "You don't look fine to me," she said, stepping closer. "And nobody should be alone when it's this cold." James, one of the richest men in America, stared at this homeless child who was worried about him. His expensive suit was ruined, his hair was frozen, and he hadn't eaten in 2 days. He had lost everything that mattered to him 6 months ago, and tonight he had come to this park to decide if life was still worth living. "Here," Luna said, unfolding her only blanket. It was thin and had holes in it, but it was all she had. "This will help keep you warm." She wrapped it around his shoulders, then sat down next to him on the bench. "What are you doing?" James asked, shocked by her kindness. "Nobody should face a storm alone," Luna replied simply. "We can keep each other warm." As the snow continued to fall around them, James felt something he hadn't felt in months: human connection. This child, who had nothing, was willing to share everything with a complete stranger. He had no idea that this moment would change both of their lives forever. If you're someone who appreciates emotional stories, we'd love for you to like and subscribe. There's more to come that might move you too. The blizzard had been raging for 3 hours, and Luna Brown was desperately looking for shelter. The cardboard box she usually slept in behind the old church had been destroyed by the wind, and every doorway she tried was either locked or already occupied by other homeless people who had gotten there first. Her thin jacket was soaked through, and her worn sneakers had holes that let the snow seep in, making her feet numb with cold. The plastic bag she carried contained everything she owned in the world: a half-empty water bottle, 2 stale crackers she had found earlier that day, and a small stuffed bear that had been with her since before her parents died. At 12 years old, Luna had been living on the streets for 3 years. She had learned to be tough, to find food where others couldn't, and to stay invisible when the police came around. But tonight was different. This storm was the worst she'd ever seen, and for the first time in a long while, she was truly scared. As she walked through the empty streets, the wind cutting through her like knives, she spotted a figure sitting alone on a bench in Central Park. At first, she thought it might be another homeless person. But as she got closer, she realized something was wrong. The man was wearing an expensive suit, but he was completely soaked and shivering violently. He wasn't even trying to find shelter. Luna had seen that look before. It was the same expression her father had worn in the days before he died. The look of someone who had lost all hope. "Sir, are you okay? You're shaking really bad," she called out, walking closer to the bench. The man looked up at her with empty eyes. Even in the dim light from the street lamp, Luna could see that he was well-dressed and probably wealthy. His watch looked expensive, and his shoes were the kind that cost more than most people made in a month. But he looked broken, like someone had taken away everything that mattered to him. "I'm fine," James Harrison said quietly, his voice barely audible over the howling wind. "Just leave me alone." But Luna didn't leave. Something about this man reminded her of herself in those first weeks after her parents died, when she felt like the world had ended and there was no point in going on. "You don't look fine to me," she said, stepping closer despite the cold. "And nobody should be alone when it's this cold." James stared at this small girl with confusion. Her dark skin was nearly purple from the cold, and her clothes were in worse condition than anything he had ever seen. She was clearly homeless, probably hungry, and definitely cold. Yet here she was, worried about him. "Why do you care?" he asked. "You don't even know me." Luna thought about the question for a moment. "Because when I was really sad and wanted to give up, a nice lady helped me. She said that when people are hurting, we should try to help them feel less alone." She reached into her plastic bag and pulled out her only blanket. It was thin and gray, with several holes where she had tried to patch it with tape. It wasn't much, but it was all she had. "Here," she said, unfolding the blanket. "This will help keep you warm." James watched in amazement as this homeless child wrapped her only protection from the cold around his shoulders. The blanket smelled like the streets and was damp from the snow, but it was warmer than anything he had felt all night. "What are you doing?" he asked, shocked by her kindness. "Nobody should face a storm alone," Luna replied simply, sitting down next to him on the bench. "We can keep each other warm." As she settled beside him, James felt the warmth from her small body. She was shivering just as much as he was, but she seemed determined to help him anyway. "You're going to freeze," he said. "You should find somewhere warm to go." Luna laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. Mister, I don't have anywhere warm to go. I live outside. This storm is bad for both of us, but at least together we can help each other. For the first time in months, James really looked at another person. This little girl had nothing. No home, no family, no warm clothes, probably no food. But she was willing to share the only thing she had with a complete stranger. "What's your name?" he asked softly. "Luna Brown. What's yours?" "James," he said, not mentioning his last name or anything about his wealth. "How old are you, Luna?" 12. "How old are you?" 45. They sat in silence for a few minutes, listening to the wind howl around them. James could feel Luna shivering beside him, and he realized that she was probably in more danger from this cold than he was. "Luna, how long have you been living on the streets?" 3 years, she said matter-of-factly. "Since my mama and daddy died in a car crash. I went to live with my aunt, but she didn't want me. She said I was too much trouble and cost too much money, so I left." "You've been taking care of yourself since you were 9 years old?" "Yeah. It's not so bad most of the time. I know where to find food and where to sleep so the police don't bother me. I made friends with some of the other people who live outside. They taught me how to stay safe." James felt a pain in his chest that had nothing to do with the cold. This child had been surviving on her own for 3 years, and yet she was still kind enough to help a stranger. "What about school?" he asked. "I can't go to school. You need an address and clean clothes and stuff like that. But I can read pretty good. I find books sometimes in the trash or at the library before they close." "What do you want to be when you grow up?" Luna was quiet for a long moment. "I used to want to be a teacher, like my mama was, but I don't think about that stuff anymore. I just try to make it through each day." James looked at this remarkable child and felt something stirring inside him that he thought had died 6 months ago. It was hope. "Luna, can I ask you something? Why are you helping me? You could have just walked past." She turned to look at him with serious eyes. "Because you look sad like I was when my parents first died. And because the lady who helped me said that when we make other people feel less alone, it makes us feel less alone too." "What lady?" "Mrs. Peterson. She worked at the shelter where I stayed for a few weeks before I decided the streets were safer. She was really nice to me, and she always said that even when we don't have much, we can still share kindness." As the snow continued to fall around them, James found himself telling Luna things he hadn't told anyone. He told her about his wife Sarah and his 8-year-old daughter Emma, who had died in a car accident 6 months ago. He told her about how he had built a business empire, but lost the only people who mattered to him. He told her about the guilt he felt for working so much that he missed precious time with his family. Luna listened without judging, sometimes asking gentle questions, sometimes just sitting quietly beside him. She shared her crackers with him, even though he could see she was hungry. She adjusted the blanket to make sure he stayed covered, even though she was getting colder. "I came here tonight because I couldn't see any point in going on," James admitted. "Everything I worked for seems meaningless now." Luna was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "My daddy told me something before he died. He said that even when bad things happen, there are still people in the world who need help. And maybe helping them is what helps us feel better." "Do you really believe that?" "I have to," she said simply. "Because if I don't believe there's still good in the world, then what's the point of anything?" As the storm began to slow down and the first hints of dawn appeared in the sky, James realized that this homeless child had saved his life in more ways than one. She had kept him warm, shared her food, and reminded him that there was still goodness in the world. But more than that, she had given him something he desperately needed, a reason to care about tomorrow. Looking at Luna, who was now asleep against his shoulder with the blanket wrapped around both of them, James made a decision that would change everything. He was going to make sure this amazing little girl never had to spend another night in the cold. And in helping her, maybe he could find a way to heal his own broken heart. As the sun rose over the city, James Harrison, one of the richest men in America, sat on a park bench with a homeless 12-year-old girl and felt wealthier than he had ever felt in his entire life. When Luna woke up, the sun was shining and the storm had passed, leaving behind a world covered in fresh white snow. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Then she felt the warmth of another person beside her and remembered the man she had helped during the night. James was still awake, watching her with a gentle expression she hadn't seen on anyone's face in a very long time. He had spent the entire night thinking about what Luna had told him and about the decision he wanted to make. "Good morning," he said softly, not wanting to startle her. "Morning," Luna replied, sitting up and rubbing her eyes. "The storm stopped." "Yes, it did. Thanks to you, we both made it through." Luna looked around at the snow-covered park. Everything looked clean and beautiful, like the world had been washed fresh overnight. Other people were starting to walk through the park, joggers, dog walkers, people heading to work, normal people with normal lives. "I should go," Luna said, starting to fold up the blanket. "People will be coming around soon, and they don't like seeing homeless kids in nice areas like this." "Wait," James said, putting a gentle hand on her arm. Before you go, can I ask you something? Luna nodded, curious about what this kind stranger wanted to know. Do you really have nowhere to go? No family, no friends, no safe place to sleep? No, sir, Luna said honestly. Just me and whatever I can carry in this bag. But I'm okay. I've been taking care of myself for a long time now. James looked at this brave little girl and felt his heart breaking. She spoke about her terrible situation like it was completely normal, like 12-year-old children were supposed to live on the streets and take care of themselves. Luna, what if I told you that you never had to sleep outside again? What if I could give you a warm home, good food, clean clothes, and a chance to go to school? Luna stared at him with wide eyes. Mister, that's really nice of you to say, but people don't just give homes to kids like me. And besides, you seem like a nice man, but I don't really know you. You're absolutely right to be careful, James said. Smart kids like you should never go with strangers. But what if we could figure out a way to do this properly? What if there were social workers and lawyers involved to make sure everything was safe and legal? Why would you want to help me that much? You just met me. James thought about how to explain what Luna had done for him without making it sound too heavy for a child to understand. Luna, last night I was in a very dark place in my life. I had lost hope and didn't see any reason to keep going. But you showed me something I had forgotten. That there are still good people in the world who care about others. You reminded me that life is worth living. I just shared my blanket, Luna said, not understanding why that was such a big deal. You shared everything you had with someone you didn't even know. Do you realize how rare that is? Most adults wouldn't do what you did. Luna was quiet for a moment, thinking about what he was saying. So you want to help me because I helped you? I want to help you because you deserve to be helped. Every child deserves a safe home and a chance at a good life. But also, because helping you would help me too. I've been very lonely since my family died, and I think we could take care of each other. Your family died? Luna asked, her voice full of sympathy. My wife and daughter were killed in a car accident 6 months ago. Since then, I've been lost. But talking with you last night reminded me that there are still people in this world who need love and care. Luna reached over and took James's hand in her small one. I'm sorry about your family. That must hurt really bad. It does. But you helped me remember that they would want me to keep living and to help other people if I could. They sat together quietly for a few minutes, both thinking about what James had suggested. Finally, Luna spoke up. If you really mean what you're saying, and if we can do it the right way with social workers and stuff, then yes, I would like to have a home. James felt relief and joy flooding through him. Really? You'd be willing to let me help you? Yes, but I have some questions first. Ask me anything you want. Are you married? Do you have other kids? No, I'm not married anymore, and I don't have any other children. Do you drink alcohol or do drugs? James was impressed by how smart her questions were. No, I don't drink or do drugs. Do you have a job? Yes, I own a company. I have enough money to take care of both of us very well. What kind of company? I build office buildings and shopping centers. It's not very exciting, but it pays well. Luna nodded seriously. Okay. And you promise that if I don't like living with you, or if I want to leave, I can. I promise. This would only work if you felt safe and happy. And I could go to school. The best school we can find. And I could have my own room? Your own room with your own bathroom, and whatever furniture and decorations you want. Luna's eyes filled with tears, but they were happy tears. I haven't had my own room since before my parents died. Well, if you'll let me, I'd like to give you that, and much more. As they stood up from the bench, James realized he needed to tell Luna something important. Luna, there's something I need you to know about me. My full name is James Harrison, and I'm actually quite wealthy. Very wealthy, in fact. When people find out who I am, they sometimes treat me differently. Luna looked at him with curiosity. How wealthy? Wealthy enough that money will never be a problem for us. But I want you to know that I'm not offering to help you because I want something in return. I'm offering because it's the right thing to do, and because I think we could be good for each other. What's it like being rich? James thought about the question. It's nice to not worry about money for food or shelter. But money can't buy the things that really matter. Love, friendship, family. I learned that when I lost my wife and daughter. All my money couldn't save them or bring them back. Are you sure you want to take care of a homeless kid? People might think it's weird. Luna, I don't care what people think. After last night, you're not just some homeless kid to me. You're the person who saved my life when I needed it most. As they walked out of the park together, Luna carrying her plastic bag and James carrying her dirty blanket, several people stared at them. A well-dressed man walking with a clearly homeless child was an unusual sight. Where are we going? Luna asked. First, we're going to get you some breakfast. A real breakfast at a nice restaurant. Then we're going to call a social worker I know and start the process of making this official. What if the social worker says no? Then we'll find another social worker, and another one after that if we have to. Luna, I have resources and connections. We'll make this work. As they walked down the street, Luna looked up at James with a mixture of hope and disbelief. This doesn't feel real. Things like this don't usually happen to people like me. Things like this don't usually happen to people like me either, James replied. But sometimes life surprises us. Sometimes the best things come when we least expect them. Are you nervous? Luna asked. Terrified, James admitted. I don't know how to take care of a child. I'm out of practice, and I'm scared I'll mess it up. I don't know how to live in a house anymore either, Luna said. I'm scared too. Well, then we'll figure it out together. We'll make mistakes, but we'll help each other learn. As they reached the restaurant, James held the door open for Luna. She hesitated for a moment, looking down at her dirty clothes and worn shoes. Are you sure they'll let me in looking like this? If they don't, then we'll find a different restaurant. You have every right to eat anywhere you want. Luna took a deep breath and walked through the door, with James right behind her. She had no idea that she was about to begin a completely new life, or that the man walking beside her was one of the most powerful people in the city. All she knew was that for the first time in 3 years, she wasn't facing the world alone. And for James, who had felt dead inside for 6 months, walking into that restaurant with Luna felt like the first step back into the land of the living. They were both about to discover that sometimes the most unlikely friendships become the most important ones, and that helping someone else is often the best way to heal your own broken heart. The restaurant James chose was called The Golden Spoon, and it was the kind of place where business executives brought important clients. The tables were covered with white linen, crystal glasses sparkled under soft lighting, and the waiters wore crisp uniforms. Luna had never been inside a place this fancy in her entire life. As soon as they walked through the door, the hostess looked at Luna with obvious shock and disgust. Her eyes traveled from Luna's matted hair down to her torn clothes and dirty sneakers, and her professional smile disappeared completely. "Good morning, Mr. Harrison," she said, clearly recognizing James but trying to figure out why he was with a homeless child. "Will it be your usual table for one?" "Table for two, please, Sarah," James replied firmly, putting his hand gently on Luna's shoulder. "And we'd like your best table by the window." The hostess hesitated, glancing around at the other customers who were already staring. "Sir, perhaps there's been some misunderstanding? We do have certain dress codes here." "There's no misunderstanding," James said, his voice becoming colder. "This is Luna, and she's my guest. We'd like to be seated immediately." Luna felt her cheeks burning with embarrassment. She could feel every person in the restaurant looking at her, and she wanted to disappear. "Maybe we should go somewhere else," she whispered to James. "I don't belong in a place like this." "You belong anywhere I'm welcome," James said loud enough for everyone to hear. "And if you're not welcome here, then neither am I." The hostess realized she was dealing with one of the restaurant's most important customers, someone who probably spent more money there in a month than most people made in a year. "Of course, Mr. Harrison. Right this way." As they walked to their table, Luna noticed how other customers whispered behind their hands and pointed at her. Some looked curious, others seemed annoyed or disgusted. She had never felt so out of place in her life. "I'm sorry," she said quietly as they sat down. "I'm embarrassing you." "Luna, look at me," James said seriously. "You have nothing to apologize for. These people are the ones who should be embarrassed. Adults who judge a child based on her clothes instead of her character." A waiter approached their table with obvious reluctance. His name tag read, Michael, and he had been working at this restaurant for 5 years. He had never seen Mr. Harrison with anyone other than business associates. "Good morning, Mr. Harrison," Michael said, but his eyes kept darting to Luna with confusion. "Would you like to see the wine list today?" "Just orange juice for both of us, please, and we'd like to see the breakfast menu." "Of course, sir." Michael hurried away, probably to discuss the unusual situation with his manager. Luna was staring around the restaurant in amazement. Everything was so clean and beautiful. The chandelier above them looked like it cost more than everything she had ever owned combined. "James, are you sure it's okay for me to be here?" "Luna, I want you to understand something. Money doesn't make someone better than someone else. These people aren't more important than you just because they have nice clothes. But I'm dirty, and I probably smell bad. I haven't had a real shower in weeks. That's not your fault. You've been doing the best you can in a difficult situation. But that's going to change now." When Michael returned with their orange juice, he set James's glass down carefully but seemed hesitant about serving Luna. "She won't bite," James said dryly. "She's 12 years old, not a wild animal." Michael quickly set down Luna's juice and handed them both menus. "I'll give you a few minutes to decide." Luna opened the menu and her eyes went wide. She had trouble reading some of the fancy words, and the prices shocked her. "James, this Eggs Benedict thing costs $18. That's more money than I usually see in a whole week." "Money isn't a problem anymore, Luna. Order whatever sounds good to you." I don't even know what most of this stuff is. At the shelter, we had cereal and toast. On the streets, I mostly ate whatever I could find. James felt anger rising in his chest. Not at Luna, but at a world where a child had to live like that. How about we start simple? Do you like pancakes? I love pancakes. My mama used to make them for me on Sunday mornings before church, but I haven't had real pancakes in years. Then pancakes it is. And bacon and eggs and fresh fruit. You need a good meal. When Michael came back to take their order, James requested a full breakfast for Luna and just coffee for himself. Aren't you going to eat? Luna asked. I'm not really hungry. I'd rather watch you enjoy your food. While they waited, Luna told James more about her life on the streets. She explained how she had learned which dumpsters behind restaurants had the best leftover food and which parks had bathrooms that stayed unlocked at night. She described the other homeless people who had helped her. An old man named Pete who taught her how to stay warm, and a woman named Sarah who showed her how to avoid dangerous areas of the city. Luna, why didn't you ever go to the police for help? James asked. Because kids like me don't get help from police. They get sent to foster homes or group homes, and I heard those places can be really bad. At least on the streets, I was free. But you were just a child. You shouldn't have had to take care of yourself. Maybe not, but that's how it was. I learned to be strong because I had to be. When Luna's food arrived, she stared at the plate like she couldn't believe it was real. There were 3 huge pancakes stacked high with butter and syrup, crispy bacon, scrambled eggs, and fresh strawberries. It was more food than she usually ate in 3 days. Go ahead, James encouraged. It's all for you. Luna took her first bite of pancake and closed her eyes, making a small sound of pure happiness. This is the best thing I've ever tasted in my whole life. As she ate, James watched her carefully. She tried to eat slowly and politely, but he could see how hungry she really was. She finished every single bite of food and even used her finger to get the last drops of syrup. Thank you, she said, looking embarrassed about how much she had eaten. I'm sorry I ate so much. I guess I was hungrier than I thought. Don't apologize for being hungry. That's what food is for. As they prepared to leave, the restaurant manager approached their table. He was a thin man in an expensive suit, and he looked very nervous about what he was going to say. Mr. Harrison, I hope you understand that we have certain standards here. Perhaps in the future, you could let us know ahead of time when you'll be bringing unusual guests. James stood up slowly, and Luna could see anger in his eyes. Unusual guests? Are you referring to my friend Luna? Sir, I just meant that we have dress codes and policies. Your dress code doesn't apply to children who don't have access to clean clothes, and your policies better not include discrimination against people based on their economic status. Of course not, sir. I didn't mean to suggest. Let me make something very clear, James said, his voice deadly calm. Luna is going to be part of my family. If she's not welcome here, then I'll take my business elsewhere, and I'll make sure everyone I know understands why. The manager's face went pale. James Harrison was one of their biggest customers, and losing his business would be a financial disaster. Mr. Harrison, there's been a misunderstanding. Of course the young lady is welcome here anytime. Good, because we'll be coming back regularly. As they left the restaurant, Luna looked up at James with amazement. You didn't have to do that for me. Yes, I did. Luna, part of taking care of you means making sure you're treated with respect wherever we go. But what if they don't let us come back? Then we'll find better restaurants. Luna, my money gives me certain advantages, and I plan to use those advantages to make sure you get the life you deserve. Their next stop was a department store to buy Luna some new clothes. As they walked through the children's section, Luna was overwhelmed by all the choices. She had been wearing the same torn outfit for months, and suddenly she was surrounded by racks of beautiful, clean clothes. I don't know where to start, she said, touching a soft sweater gently. Start anywhere you want. We have all day and we're going to get you everything you need. A sales clerk approached them with the same suspicious look they had encountered at the restaurant. Can I help you find something? Yes, James said firmly. We need a complete wardrobe for Luna. Clothes for school, clothes for playing, clothes for special occasions. Everything a 12-year-old girl needs. The clerk looked at Luna's current condition and then at James, clearly trying to figure out what was happening. This is Luna, James explained patiently. She's going to be living with me, and she needs clothes that fit properly and make her feel good about herself. Over the next 2 hours, they picked out jeans, sweaters, dresses, pajamas, underwear, socks, and shoes. Luna tried on outfit after outfit, looking at herself in the mirror with wonder. She hadn't seen herself in clean new clothes since before her parents died. I look different, she said, staring at her reflection in a blue dress that fit her perfectly. You look like yourself, James corrected. Just well cared for, which is how you should have been looking all along. As they prepared to pay for everything, the total came to over $800. Luna's eyes went wide when she saw the number on the register. James, this is too much money. I can't let you spend this much on me. Luna, this is what clothes cost when you buy them all at once. and $800 is nothing compared to what you're worth. But what if this doesn't work out? What if the social workers say no? Or what if you change your mind about wanting me around? James knelt down so he was at Luna's eye level, right there in the middle of the store. Luna, I want you to listen to me carefully. I am not going to change my mind. You saved my life last night, and now I want to spend the rest of my life making sure you're safe and happy. You promise? I promise. We're going to be a family, Luna, and families take care of each other. As they left the store with bags full of new clothes, Luna felt like she was living in a dream. 24 hours ago, she had been sleeping in the cold, wondering where her next meal would come from. Now she was walking down the street with someone who cared about her, wearing clothes that fit, with a full stomach and hope for the future. What happens next? She asked James as they put the shopping bags in his car. Next, we go to my house so you can take a hot shower and try on your new clothes properly. Then we call the social worker and start making this official. Are you nervous about calling the social worker? Terrified, James admitted. But we're going to do this the right way, step by step. As they drove toward James's house, Luna pressed her face against the window, watching the city go by. For the first time in 3 years, she wasn't worried about where she would sleep that night or what she would eat tomorrow. She was going home. She had a family again. And the man sitting beside her, this stranger who had become the most important person in her world, was going to make sure she never had to face another storm alone. As they drove through the city, Luna watched the buildings change from busy downtown streets to quieter neighborhoods with tree-lined sidewalks. The houses got bigger and the yards got wider as they climbed into the hills on the north side of town. James, where exactly do you live? Luna asked, pressing her face against the car window. About 10 more minutes from here. It's in a quiet area with good schools nearby. Luna had never been in this part of the city before. During her 3 years on the streets, she had learned to stay in areas where homeless people were more common, downtown, near shelters and soup kitchens. The police in wealthy neighborhoods didn't like seeing homeless children and would often arrest them or force them to move along. The houses here are huge, she said with amazement. They look like castles. Some of them are pretty big, James agreed. But remember, Luna, a house is just a building. What makes it a home is the people who live there and care about each other. As they turned into a long driveway lined with tall oak trees, Luna's mouth fell open. James's house was a beautiful 2-story colonial with white columns and large windows. The front yard was perfectly landscaped with flower gardens and a circular driveway with a fountain in the center. You live here? Luna whispered. This place is like a palace. James looked at his house through Luna's eyes and suddenly felt embarrassed by how big and expensive everything was. It's too big for just one person. I bought it when my wife and daughter were alive, thinking we'd fill it with family and friends. But after they died, it just felt empty. They parked in the 3-car garage, which was bigger than some of the buildings where Luna had slept. James's collection of cars included a Mercedes, a BMW, and a classic Porsche that he rarely drove. How many cars does one person need? Luna asked innocently. That's a very good question, James replied, realizing for the first time how ridiculous his car collection seemed. I guess I never really thought about it. They entered the house through a side door that led into the kitchen. Luna stopped walking and stared in amazement. The kitchen was enormous, with granite countertops, stainless steel appliances, and an island in the center that was bigger than most people's dining room tables. Holy cow, she breathed. This kitchen is bigger than the entire shelter where I used to stay. James had employed a housekeeper named Mrs. Garcia for the past 2 years. She was a kind woman in her 50s who had been worried about James since his family died. She had watched him become more and more isolated, barely eating, rarely leaving the house except for work. When they walked into the kitchen, Mrs. Garcia was preparing lunch. She looked up with surprise when she saw James with a young girl she had never met before. Mr. Harrison, you're home early, she said with a warm smile. Then she noticed Luna's appearance and the shopping bags they were carrying, and her expression became confused. Mrs. Garcia, I'd like you to meet Luna Brown. She's going to be living with us from now on. Mrs. Garcia's eyes widened with shock. In the 2 years she had worked for James, he had never brought anyone home, let alone a child. And this child was clearly from very difficult circumstances. Living with us, sir? She asked carefully. Yes. Luna is going to be my daughter. We're starting the adoption process today. Mrs. Garcia looked at Luna, who was still staring around the kitchen in wonder, then back at James. She had never seen him look this alive since his family died. That's wonderful news, she said warmly, walking over to Luna. Hello, sweetie. I'm Mrs. Garcia. I take care of this big house and make sure Mr. Harrison eats his vegetables. Luna smiled shyly. Nice to meet you, ma'am. I'm Luna. Are you hungry, Luna? I was just making some soup for lunch. She just had a big breakfast, James said. But first, I think she'd like to take a hot shower and try on some of her new clothes. Mrs. Garcia noticed how thin Luna was, how her hair needed washing, and how her current clothes were in terrible condition. But she also noticed the hope in the little girl's eyes, and the way James was looking at her with protective care. "Of course," Mrs. Garcia said. "Luna, would you like me to show you to your room?" "I get my own room?" Luna asked, looking at James to make sure she had heard correctly. "Your own room with your own bathroom," James confirmed. "And you can decorate it however you want." As they walked through the house, Luna felt like she was touring a museum. The living room had a fireplace and furniture that looked like it belonged in a magazine. The dining room had a table that could seat 12 people. There were paintings on the walls, fresh flowers and vases, and carpet so thick her feet sank into it. "This is the guest room," Mrs. Garcia said, opening a door on the second floor. "But if you're going to live here, we should probably redecorate it to match your personality." Luna walked into the room and gasped. It was bigger than any space she had ever had to herself. There was a queen-size bed with a fluffy comforter, a desk by the window, a dresser, and even a small sitting area with a comfortable chair. "This is all mine?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "All yours," James said from the doorway. "And this is your bathroom." He opened another door to reveal a full bathroom with a large bathtub, a separate shower, and fluffy towels hanging on warming racks. Luna sat down on the bed and started crying. But these weren't sad tears. They were tears of overwhelming gratitude and disbelief. "I'm sorry," she said, wiping her eyes. "I just can't believe this is real. Yesterday I was sleeping under a bridge, and today I have my own room in a palace." James sat down next to her on the bed. "Luna, this is real, and you deserve all of this and more. Why are you doing all this for someone you just met?" "Because sometimes in life, we meet people who change everything. You reminded me that there's still goodness in the world, and that helping others is what makes life meaningful." Mrs. Garcia brought Luna fresh towels and showed her how to work the shower. "Take as long as you want, sweetie. Use all the hot water you need. And don't worry about making a mess. That's what I'm here for." When Luna was alone in the bathroom, she looked at herself in the mirror. Her reflection showed a thin, dirty girl with matted hair and sad eyes. But for the first time in 3 years, she could see hope in that reflection too. She turned on the shower and stood under the hot water for almost 30 minutes, washing away 3 years of street life. She used the expensive shampoo and soap, marveling at how good everything smelled and how soft the towels were. When she came out of the bathroom wearing one of her new outfits, jeans and a soft pink sweater, she looked like a completely different person. Her hair was clean and shiny, her skin was glowing, and the clothes fit her perfectly. James was waiting in her room when she came out, and his eyes filled with tears when he saw her. "You look beautiful, Luna. You look like the amazing little girl you've always been, just properly cared for." "I feel different," Luna said, looking at herself in the mirror. "I feel clean and warm and safe." "You are safe. This is your home now." While Luna explored her new room, James went to his office to make some important phone calls. The first call was to his lawyer, David Chen, who had handled his business affairs for over 10 years. "David, I need your help with something very important and very urgent." "Of course, James. What's going on?" "I want to adopt a 12-year-old girl named Luna Brown. She's been living on the streets for 3 years, and I want to give her a home." There was silence on the other end of the phone. "James, this is very sudden. Are you sure you've thought this through?" "I've never been more sure of anything in my life. I need you to contact Child Protective Services and start the adoption process immediately." "James, adoption isn't something you can do overnight. There are background checks, home studies, psychological evaluations. The process usually takes months or even years. Then we'll do whatever it takes. Money is no object. It's not about money. It's about the law and what's best for the child. If this girl is truly homeless, there are probably already social workers looking for her." James's second call was to Dr. Sarah Mitchell, a child psychologist he had met through his charity work. She specialized in helping children who had experienced trauma. "Dr. Mitchell, I need your help with a very special situation." After explaining Luna's circumstances, Dr. Mitchell agreed to meet with them the next day. "James, what you're doing is admirable, but you need to understand that this child has probably been through significant trauma. She'll need professional help to adjust to such a dramatic change in her life. Whatever she needs, she'll get it." His third call was to Elena Rodriguez, a social worker he had met through his foundation's work with homeless shelters. "Elena, I need to report a homeless child and start emergency custody proceedings." "James, this is highly unusual. Usually when we find homeless children, they go into the foster care system while we look for permanent placements. This is different. I want to adopt Luna myself, and I want to do everything legally and properly. Bringing a homeless child into your home without going through proper channels could be seen as kidnapping, even if your intentions are good. Then help me go through the proper channels. Today." Elena agreed to come to the house that evening to assess the situation and begin the legal process. When James returned to Luna's room, he found her sitting at the desk, writing in a small notebook with a pen she had found in the drawer. "What are you writing?" he asked gently. "I'm writing down everything that happened today, so I don't forget. The pancakes at the restaurant, the new clothes, this beautiful room. I want to remember every detail. Luna, you don't have to worry about forgetting. This is your life now. Every day is going to be better than the last." "James, can I ask you something?" "Anything. What if the social workers decide I can't stay with you? What if they say you're not allowed to adopt me?" James sat down in the chair next to her desk. "Luna, I'm going to be honest with you. This might not be easy. There will probably be paperwork and interviews and people asking lots of questions. But I promise you this, I will fight for you. I will use every resource I have to make sure we become a real family. And if they say no, then we'll appeal their decision. And if that doesn't work, we'll find another way. Luna, I'm not giving up on you, no matter what anyone says." That evening, as they sat down for dinner in the large dining room, Luna looked across the table at James and felt something she hadn't experienced in 3 years, the feeling of belonging somewhere. "James," she said quietly, "thank you for saving me." "Luna," he replied, "thank you for saving me first." Outside, snow was beginning to fall again, but neither of them was worried about the cold anymore. They had found something more valuable than shelter or warmth. They had found each other, and they were home. Elena Rodriguez arrived at James's house at 7 o'clock that evening, carrying a thick folder of paperwork and wearing the serious expression of someone who had seen too many difficult situations involving children. Luna was nervous as she sat next to James in the living room, wearing one of her new outfits and trying to make a good impression. She had spent the afternoon exploring the house with Mrs. Garcia, who had been teaching her how to use all the modern appliances and explaining how different rooms were used. "Hello, Luna," Elena said warmly as she sat down across from them. "My name is Elena Rodriguez, and I work with the Department of Children and Family Services. I understand you've been living on the streets for quite some time." "Yes, ma'am," Luna replied politely. 3 years. "And you're 12 years old now?" "Yes, ma'am." Elena opened her folder and pulled out several forms. "Luna, I need to ask you some questions, and I want you to be completely honest with me, okay? You're not in trouble, and whatever you tell me won't get you or Mr. Harrison in any difficulty." For the next hour, Elena interviewed Luna about her life on the streets, her family history, and how she had met James. Luna answered every question truthfully, explaining about her parents' death, her brief time with her aunt, and her decision to leave the foster care system. "Luna, Mr. Harrison has told me he wants to adopt you. How do you feel about that?" "I want it more than anything," Luna said, her voice full of emotion. "James saved my life, and he's the kindest person I've ever met. I want to be his daughter." "And you feel safe with him? He's never made you uncomfortable or asked you to do anything inappropriate?" "No, ma'am. He's been perfect. He bought me clothes and gave me my own room and promised to send me to school. He treats me like I matter." Elena then interviewed James privately, asking detailed questions about his background, his financial situation, his reasons for wanting to adopt Luna, and his plans for her care. "Mr. Harrison, I have to be honest with you. This situation is highly unusual. Typically, homeless children go into the foster care system while we search for permanent placements. Taking a child directly from the streets into your home, even with good intentions, is not standard procedure." "I understand that," James replied. "But Luna fell through the cracks of your system once before. I don't want that to happen again. I can see that you care about this child, and your home is obviously suitable. But there are still procedures we have to follow. Background checks, psychological evaluations, home studies. The process usually takes months. What if I applied for emergency temporary custody? Luna needs stability now, not months from now." Elena considered this carefully. "That's possible, but it would require a court hearing. You'd need to prove that placing Luna in foster care would cause her more harm than allowing her to stay with you. Given her history with foster care, wouldn't that be easy to prove?" "Maybe, but you'd also need character references, financial documentation, and a psychological evaluation showing you're capable of caring for a traumatized child. I can have all of that ready by tomorrow." Elena looked at James with surprise. Most people couldn't arrange such things so quickly, but James Harrison wasn't most people. His wealth and connections could make things happen faster than usual. "If you can get all the documentation together, I can arrange an emergency hearing for later this week. But Mr. Harrison, you need to understand that this is just the beginning. Even if the court grants temporary custody, the full adoption process will still take time." "I understand. We'll do whatever it takes." After Elena left, James and Luna sat together in the living room, both feeling exhausted but hopeful. "What happens if the court says no?" Luna asked quietly. "Then we appeal. And if that doesn't work, we find another way. Luna, I meant what I said. I'm not giving up on you. But what if they think you're not good enough to be my dad because you're not married or because you don't have experience with kids?" James thought about the question carefully. "Luna, I may not be perfect, but I know one thing for certain. I will love you and protect you with everything I have. Sometimes that's enough. Over the next 3 days, James used all of his resources and connections to prepare for the custody hearing. His lawyer worked around the clock to gather the necessary documentation. Dr. Mitchell conducted psychological evaluations of both James and Luna. Character references came in from business associates, employees, and people who had worked with James through his charitable foundation. The most important reference came from Mrs. Garcia, who had watched James transform from a broken, isolated man into someone with purpose and hope again. I have worked for Mr. Harrison for 2 years, she wrote in her letter. Since his family died, he has been lost and alone. But since Luna came into his life, I have seen him become the man he used to be, kind, caring, and full of life. They need each other, and they are already a family in every way that matters. On the day of the custody hearing, James wore his best suit, and Luna wore a blue dress that Mrs. Garcia had helped her pick out. They sat together in the courtroom, holding hands and waiting for the judge to make a decision that would change their lives. The judge, Honorable Margaret Chen, was a woman in her 60s who had spent 30 years dealing with custody cases. She had seen every possible situation involving children and families, and she prided herself on making decisions based on what was truly best for the child. Mr. Harrison, Judge Chen said, looking at James over her reading glasses. This is a highly unusual case. You're asking me to grant custody of a child you've known for less than a week. Yes, Your Honor. But sometimes life-changing connections happen quickly. Luna and I found each other when we both needed someone most. And Luna, the judge said, turning to look at the little girl. Do you understand what adoption means? It means Mr. Harrison would become your legal father, responsible for taking care of you until you're 18 years old. Yes, ma'am, Luna said clearly. And I want that very much. James is already like a father to me. Can you tell me why you think living with Mr. Harrison would be better than living with a foster family? Luna took a deep breath. Because he chose me. He didn't take me in because it was his job, or because someone paid him to. He wanted me to be his daughter because he cares about me, and I chose him too. Judge Chen reviewed all the documentation, the psychological evaluations, the character references, the financial statements, and Elena's report on Luna's background and current situation. Mr. Harrison, I'm going to grant you temporary custody of Luna Brown for a period of 6 months. During that time, you'll continue working with Child Protective Services on the full adoption process. If everything goes well, we'll reconvene in 6 months to finalize the adoption. James felt tears streaming down his face as Luna threw her arms around him. Thank you, Your Honor, he said, his voice thick with emotion. Mr. Harrison, I'm trusting you with something very precious. This child has been through more trauma than most adults experience in a lifetime. Don't let her down. I won't, Your Honor. I promise. 6 months later, James and Luna returned to the same courtroom for the final adoption hearing. But this time, they weren't alone. Mrs. Garcia was there, beaming with pride. Dr. Mitchell was there, having worked with Luna throughout her adjustment period. Elena Rodriguez was there, amazed by how well Luna had adapted to her new life. Luna was no longer the frightened, homeless child who had shared her blanket with a stranger. She was thriving in school, had made friends, and had grown 3 inches. But most importantly, she was happy. Luna, Judge Chen said with a smile. How has life been with Mr. Harrison? He's the best dad in the world, Luna said confidently. He helps me with my homework, takes me to school activities, and we have pancakes every Sunday morning. He keeps all his promises, and he makes me feel safe and loved every day. And Mr. Harrison, how has fatherhood been treating you? Your Honor, Luna saved my life that night in the park. Adopting her has been the greatest privilege of my life. She's taught me that family isn't about blood. It's about love, commitment, and choosing to take care of each other. Then it is my great pleasure to grant this adoption. Luna Brown, you are now officially Luna Harrison. Congratulations to you both. As they left the courthouse that day, Luna looked up at James with tears of joy in her eyes. Dad, are we really a family now? Like, forever and ever? Forever and ever, James confirmed, picking her up and spinning her around. No matter what happens, we're family now. That evening, they had a celebration dinner at home with Mrs. Garcia, who had become like a grandmother to Luna. As they sat around the dining room table, Luna made an announcement. Dad, I've been thinking about what I want to be when I grow up. What's that, sweetheart? I want to help other kids like me. Kids who don't have families and need someone to care about them. James smiled, knowing that his daughter's compassionate heart, the same heart that had saved him on that snowy night, would help many other people throughout her life. I think that's a wonderful dream, Luna. And I'll help you make it come true. As they tucked Luna into bed that night, she looked around at her beautiful room, now decorated with posters of her favorite books and photos of her new life, and felt grateful for every moment that had led her to this place. Dad, Do you ever think about that night in the park? Every day, James replied. It was the night my real life began. Mine too. I'm glad we found each other. So am I, sweetheart. So am I. Outside, snow was falling again, just like it had been that night when a homeless girl and a broken man had found hope in each other's kindness. But now they were warm and safe and surrounded by love, proving that sometimes the most beautiful families are the ones that choose each other. Years later, Luna Harrison would indeed dedicate her life to helping homeless children, just as she had promised. And James would continue to be amazed every day by the strength, wisdom, and compassion of the daughter who had taught him that the best way to heal a broken heart is to open it to someone else who needs love. Their story became a reminder that kindness is never wasted, that families come in all forms, and that sometimes the most important thing you can give someone is the simple gift of not giving up on them. In the end, they had both been homeless, Luna literally, and James in his heart. But together, they had built something more valuable than any house. They had built a home filled with love, laughter, and the unbreakable bond between a father and daughter who had saved each other's lives.